Okay, everyone, welcome to chapter 2 of this JavaScript for Beginners course. So, in this part of the course, what we're going to learn about is how we can make decisions in JavaScript. So, we're going to be learning about Boolean logic, taking expressions and finding out if they evaluate to true or false, and making a decision based on that. We're going to be looking at how we can repeat code using loops, making decisions with if statements. So we have all of that to look forward to, okay? And then we'll do some exercises at the end of this chapter. So we're not just learning the syntax, how to make an if statement, how to make a for loop, but also how to actually, apply them and make decisions in JavaScript. So that's what this section is all about. It's all about decision making in JavaScript. And the reason that is important is in the real world, so for example, I'm on the Netflix homepage, applications like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, not just streaming services, but dating apps, banks as well. They all make decisions, right? So I've gone on to Netflix, and I'm currently in Canada right now, so it's netflix.com/ca. And it has decided that I am not logged in. So therefore it shows me this piece of content, right? Now, maybe you're someone who already has a Netflix account. So if you click on login, you enter your username and password correctly, you'll then be able to log in and see all the videos. Maybe you don't have a Netflix account, okay? So you would have to enter your email, get started, and if you're able to successfully pay, you'll then be able to log in. So applications make decisions. A decision, for example, is user signed up? Maybe that's true, so you show them videos. If user is not signed up, then show them this email address and get started, call to action or CTA button here where you want them to sign up, right? So you notice this about applications. They've got like buttons, call to action buttons, where they want you to take an action. So if you're already a user, please log in. If you're not a user, please get started. Sign up to our platform and give us some money, okay? So that's what this chapter is going to be about. So it's chapter 2, so we're going to be covering Boolean logic, some sort of expression, is 5 greater than 2, is 2 less than 5, has user paid, is that the value of true, so that's Boolean logic. We're evaluating expressions, and if depending on whether they're true or false, we then enter the control flow, where we make decisions, okay? So if something's true, show this content. If something's false, show some other content. And for order to us to make those comparisons, we're going to have to learn about the comparison operators in JavaScript, which we're going to talk about in the next tutorial, okay? So the comparison operators are things like greater than, or equal to, less than or equal to. We also are able to compare data types as well. For example, we have loose equality with a double equal sign and strict equality, okay? So we have all that to look forward to in the next tutorial where we talk about the comparison operators. But just a quick overview for this chapter, we're going to be learning about the comparison operators. There are 8 of them, these guys here, but there are 9 if you include the ternary operator, which is very useful. We have the logical and, logical or, logical not. So if condition 1 and condition is true, if condition 1 or condition is true, that kind of thing. We're going to look at loops, for loops, while loops, etc. We're going to do some loop exercises, and we'll obviously look at things like the if statement and the switch statement as well. So we've all of this to look forward to in this chapter. The next tutorial will start talking about the comparison operators. So I'll see you in the next one, and we'll get started with those. Okay guys, welcome back. This is going to be the tutorial on comparison operators part 1. Okay, so in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're just going to cover the first 4 comparison operators that I want to talk to you about in JavaScript. So we can use comparison operators to compare different values, and that will evaluate to a Boolean true or false, okay? So for example, we could check to see if the number 10 is greater than the number 5, that would evaluate to true. If the number 10 is greater than the number 7, that would also evaluate to true, okay? Or for example, if the number 2 is greater than the number 2, well, that would evaluate to false because they're the same, right? So we're just going to get a bit of practice with this, how we can do some sort of expression that evaluates to true or false, and then throughout this chapter we'll begin to learn how we can actually then make decisions based on that. Run this piece of code if something is true, but run that piece of code if something evaluates to false, okay? So let's get started. What we can do is we can just console.log out, console.log, we're going to do our first comparison. Let's check to see, let's hypothetically assume that we're the manager of a bar and we want to let people in if they are greater than 21. So our first guest arrives. We're going to use the term guest because we're fancy, right? We want to be an up-class bar. We're selling cocktails and espresso martinis. So Kira is our first guest, and we check her ID, and she's 32. So 32 is greater than 21. Semicolon to end our statement. Okay, so do you think that will evaluate to true or false? Well, 32 is greater than, it is a bigger number than 21, so that will evaluate to true, the Boolean true. So if I save and refresh, we get true. So Kira is now allowed into our bar. We now have one person there. She goes over and gets herself a drink. We're starting to make some money, okay? Her friend Jessica arrives next, and Jessica is a similar age. Jessica's 29. They met at work. So is 29 greater than 21? Well, that's true. So we decide we're going to let her friend in as well, okay? So we get true. Okay, awesome. So they're at the bar. They're having a great time. Now, a guy appears, okay, so console.log, maybe his name is Jake, we check his ID, so he's 24, okay, 24 is still greater than 21, so it's 24 greater than 21, that is true, so we're going to let him in, okay, awesome. Then we get a bit of a drunk guy comes up, and it turns out he's only 19, so is 19 greater than 21, semicolon, well, that's going to evaluate to false, right, because 19 is not greater than 21. No, it is less. So that will evaluate to false. So let's have a look. So that is false. So we're not supposed to let him in, but the bouncers, they're only new. They're like, what do you think, Dara? And I say, you know what, let's let him in. No one's looking. Let's pretend, let's change it now to being greater than 18. So is 19 greater than 18? Yes, it is. Awesome. So now we're after letting 4 people in a row in because, we want to make some money. We don't want to go bankrupt for our bar. So everyone's been brought in. Welcome, everybody. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is the comparison operator greater than. Okay, we can also do greater than or equal to. So let me just delete all of this. That kind of young 19-year-old we let in, his friend also appears. And, maybe we're gone lax now. So it's like, we'll let them in if they're like 19 or older, right? But this guy's only 18. So let's say we're saying console.log 18 is greater than 18, okay? So what do you think is going to happen here? Well, 18 is actually not greater than 18 because it's the same value, right? 18 is equal to 18, but it's not greater than. So that's going to evaluate to false, right? Because 18 is not greater than 18, it is the same value. So that's false. But we're going to loosen our conditions again. Now we're going to say, let them in if they are 18 or older. So we could say, let them in when 18 is greater than or equal to 18. So that now will evaluate to true, okay? So just to remind you, if we do console.log 18 is greater than 18, that's going to evaluate to false because 18 is not greater than 18. But if we then use the greater than or equal to, okay, the chevron and the equal to sign, 18 is greater than or equal to 18? Yes, it is. So we're going to get false for the first expression and true for the second. Okay, so let's refresh and have a look. Awesome, false and true. So I think you get the idea. We can also do less than or equal to as well if you wanted to do those comparisons. So for a bit of practice, let's move away from our bar example. Let's just check it out. Say, okay, is 10, less than 15? Well, that will evaluate to true because 10 is less than 15. So let's have a look. That evaluates to true. You could also do 10 is, less than or equal to 15. So that will also evaluate to true because it is, less than or equal to. It is less than. Okay, awesome. So guys, there are the first 4 comparison operators I want you to be aware of in JavaScript. We have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. One last thing I want to show you is we can do the comparison operators with variables. So we don't need to directly just start typing in numbers. We can also do a check with variables. So we're going to say let Jessica age be equal to 32. Remember Jessica. So now what I want to do is I want to do a comparison of a variable to a number. So I want to say, okay, console.log, is Jessica age, that variable, greater than or equal to 21? So now what we're doing is we're actually comparing a variable with a value of 32 to a number. So we're saying Jessica age, that variable, is that greater than or equal to 21? Well, what we know is the value of that variable is 32. So we're really checking, is 32 greater than or equal to 21? And we know that that will evaluate to true because yes, 32 is a bigger number than 21. So let's save and refresh. Awesome, and we get true. Just to show you an example where that would be false, we could say let Jake's age equal to 7. Okay, so Jake should not be anywhere near a nightclub. No offense to Jake, you should be out playing with your friends. So we're going to say Jake age, is that greater than or equal to 21? Well, that's going to evaluate to false, right? Because really what we're saying is the variable Jake age is equal to 11. Okay, we're assigning 11 to that variable Jake age. And then here we're doing our check. We're saying, is Jake's age, we can put in the S here if you want, make sure you do it in both places, so Jake's age. So const.log, Jake's age is greater than or equal to 21. Well, 11 is not greater than 21. No, it's like 10 below or less, so that's going to evaluate to false, okay? So let's save and refresh, and we get false. Okay, awesome. So guys, in the next tutorial, we'll look at the next 4 comparison operators in JavaScript. And just one thing to be aware of, remember, the Boolean true and false are not equal to the string true and false, okay? So remember, console.log, the Boolean true, that value there, is different to true inside of quotes, because the first value is a Boolean value, the second is just a string. Okay, so let's just show them on the console. So see here, Boolean is true, and the string is type. It's red. It's in quotes. Okay, awesome. So guys, congratulations. We've just covered the first 4 comparison operators in JavaScript. I hope that makes sense. If you found it a bit confusing, please feel free to watch this video back and get a bit of practice. But in the next tutorial now, we're going to look at the next 4 comparison operators in JavaScript. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hey friends, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you the difference between loose and strict equality. So what this tutorial is going to be about is us essentially comparing the value of a variable, let's say let age equal to 23, and compare that, to check if it's equal to 23, right? And I'm going to show you loose equality with a double equal sign and strict equality with a triple equal sign. So 2 equal signs is we're testing for equal to, 3 equal signs is we are testing for basically strictly equal to. So strictly equal to, also known as strict equality. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say hypothetically I'm in college, I'm 23 years old, great year, and my lecturer wants me to pair up with someone of the same age for some reason, right? So we can do a check, right? So we can say we'll say Dara age be equal to 23, hashtag I wish, and we'll say let Jessica age be equal to 23 as well, right? So our lecturer person is basically wants to do a check to see if my age is equal to Jessica's age. Well, they can do a check for that, right? So they can say console.log is Dara age equal to Jessica age. Okay, so what do you think that's going to evaluate to? Well, what I'm doing is I'm saying Dara age is equal to 2 equal signs Jessica age. Okay, now the 2 equal signs is for the test, right? If you do 1 equal sign, you're not doing a test, you're actually assigning a value. Okay, so remember that, right? We saw before, let me just do a multi-line comment here. Apologies. Oh, Derek, come on, what are you doing? Sorry, hon. Okay, so we've seen before how if we use 1 equal sign, right, that's the assignment operator, okay? We are essentially assigning, if I can spell, a value to a variable, okay? So for example, we might have let city equal to Sydney or something like that, right? Hello, Australia, right? Where when you want to do a test, you want to do two equal signs at the minimum. So that is loose equality, okay? So two equal signs is we're basically checking to see if something is equal to another variable, and we call it loose equality because we're only checking to see if essentially the values are the same. We're not necessarily checking for the data type. I'll explain that in a minute, right? Let's just see what this is equal to. Well, this is going to be true, right? Because my age, let our age equal to 23, that's what we're testing for here. Is that loosely equal to Jessica's age, also 23? Well, that's going to be true, right? Okay, so that's awesome. Now, what were to happen if instead of, me putting 23 here and 23 here, we were to get the input from the user? So like, Dara, what's your age? Okay, we know it's 23. The lecturer doesn't have to ask me that. They just know because they were at my awesome party. Where maybe Jessica, they got user input, right? And we saw that with user input previously, we might get a string, okay? So now I've got a question for you. If we're testing to see if Dara age, my age is equal to 23, if that is loosely equal to Jessica's age, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer. It's still going to evaluate the true. Loose equality is going to check to see if 23, the number, is equal to 23, the string, and it is actually going to come back with true, right? To prove that to you, let's just save and refresh, and we still get true. And that's because loose equality cares about the values, it doesn't care about the data type. So it's saying the number 23, is that equal to the string 23? Yeah, that's good enough, okay? However, with strict equality, if we add another equal sign, that will now evaluate to false. And let's just save and refresh, and I'll prove this to you. And it evaluates to false. Why is that? Well, loose equality basically only cares that the values are the same. It's checking to see if the values are the same or equal to each other. So in this case, 23 is string and 23 the number, it would come back and say, yeah, they're the same, right? Where strict equality, when using three equal signs, 1, 2, 3, so this is strict equality, this is checking to see if two variables and data types are strictly equal to each other. And what that basically means is, are the data type and the value the same? Equality. So it's going to say, no, 23 the string is not equal to 23 the number because one's a string and one's a number, okay? So for us to get this to evaluate to true here, what we'd have to do is we'd have to change either my age 23 to be a string. So now we're checking to see if the string 23 is equal to the string 23. Let's have a look. That's true. Or what we could do is we could make both of them to be a number. So 23 the number and 23 the number. Okay, so are they equal to each other? Let's have a look. And they are. Okay, awesome. You can also, by the way, you don't need to do variables if you wanted. You could also do a check directly. So we could say, console.log, is the number 10 strictly equal to the number 10? Let's have a look. Well, that should evaluate to true, right? Because they are the same value and the same data type, where, the number 10, would that be equal to the string 10? Well, that will evaluate to false, right? Because they're not the same data type. And let's just prove that to ourselves. Okay, awesome. So basically, strict equality is more powerful because it's testing for both the value and the data type. So when you use a double equal sign, that's loose equality, you're checking that the value of two variables are the same, and that can evaluate to true or false. However, when you use three equal signs or strict equality, you're basically checking that both the value and the data type are the same. Okay, so for this reason, when you see code in a code base, if you become a developer, using three equal signs is more powerful because typically you want to make sure that the data type and the value are equal to each other. Okay, awesome. So guys, that's that tutorial. We've covered loose equality using two equal signs and strict equality. Remember, if you want to check if two variables evaluate to the same value, you want to use at least two equal signs, because remember, one equal sign, you're not doing a comparison operator. That's the assignment operator. Okay, so if I was to say let age equal to I don't know, we'll say 30, and then I wanted to do a check, and then I said, okay, age is equal to 40. I'm not checking if age 30 is equal to the value of 40. What I'm actually doing here is I'm reassigning the value 40 to the variable age. So remember, one equals sign is the assignment operator, okay? And that is when you are assigning, putting a value into a variable. So what I'm actually doing here with one equal sign is I'm reassigning the value of 40 to the age variable, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a check, so I would have to do two equal signs if I wanted to do a loose comparison, or three equal signs if I want to do strict equality. So when people are new to coding, programming, development, etc., it's quite an easy mistake to make for newbies to coding. You often see that where they're trying to compare one variable to another, or one variable to a value, and they use one equal sign instead of two or three. Remember, you're actually reassigning the value. You're not doing a comparison there. Okay, awesome. We'll leave it there for that tutorial. So key takeaway, two equal signs is you're checking to see if two variables are equal to each other under loose equality. So the number 10 would be equal to the string 10, where if you want to use strict equality, you want to use three equal signs. Okay, that's awesome. That's loose and strict equality. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hey friends, welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to talk about not equal to and strictly not equal to in JavaScript. So I just realized I need to add another equal sign there. My apologies. Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to cover not equal to and strictly not equal to. So not equal to is you can check to see if two numbers are not equal to each other. Okay, so this number is not equal to that number, and if the two numbers are not equal to each other, this would actually evaluate to be true. Okay, so you're probably wondering why that might be helpful. Well, imagine you're new to JavaScript and you have to create a program where the user has to guess a number. Okay, so if the user guesses the right number, the game is over. But if the user doesn't guess the right number, you want to give the user a couple more chances, right? So in other words, the game is continuing while they have not guessed the right number. So that is just a small example of where you could check that one variable is not equal to another, okay? So what we'll do is we'll do a little test here. We'll just say, we want to check if two people have the same age. So we'll say let Bruce age be equal to 38. And we might say let what's Superman's real name? Clark? I don't know how to spell Clark. Is there an E at the end? Maybe there is. We'll say Clark is equal to, I don't know, he's 35. He's a bit younger, right? So we just want to do a check. Do Clark age. Do Bruce and Clark have the same age? Well, let's do a check. So what we can do is we can just say console.log, okay, is Bruce's age not equal to, so exclamation mark equal sign. So we're doing a check to see if Bruce's age is not equal to Clark's age. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? Well, really what we're doing is we're checking to see if 38 is not equal to 35. Okay, and what's that going to evaluate to? Well, that's going to evaluate to true, right? Because Bruce's age is not equal to Clark's age. So if we just save and refresh, we get true. Okay, so they are not equal to each other. Okay, awesome. Now, what if instead of getting Clark's age, we got the user age? So we say let user age is equal to, and for some reason we did prompt them to enter their age, but we actually get a type. We get a type of string. Okay. Well, now let's see if we do the test. Okay. Bruce's age is not equal to user age. So what we're doing here is we're just saying 38 is not equal to 25. The string, what's going to happen? Well, that's going to evaluate to true as well, right? Because the number 38, it's not equal to the string of 25. So that will also evaluate to true. Okay, so we see that. Awesome. Okay, but what if we then had, let's say, the string value of 38? Okay, well, under loose not equal to, so the exclamation mark and one equal sign, we're testing here if 38, the number, is not equal to 38, the string. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? Well, let's have a look. Let's delete that. I'm not going to tell you. So is 38 the number not equal to 38 the string? Okay, so we get false, right? But, 38 the number and 38 the string, maybe you just want to check to see, you know, if that was the case under strict equality, right? So to do that, you just add another equal sign, and let's have a look, and we get true. Okay, so basically, when we did it with just one, loose equal sign, sorry, one, when we did it under loose not equal to, so the exclamation mark and the equal sign, it came back saying like the 38 was not equal to 38 the string, okay? But if you do it with the strict equality, it's checking to see both the data type, and the value. So when you use strictly not equal to, it's saying, yeah, 38, the number, is not equal to 38, the string, so it's going to return true. It's saying they're not equal to each other. Okay, so this gets a bit confusing, but just make sure that whenever you're doing comparisons, you're basically making sure that you're comparing the same data types. Okay, okay, awesome. So guys, that is basically not equal to in JavaScript, and then strictly not equal to. Okay, so key takeaway from this tutorial: if you want to check if two variables are not equal to each other, you can use the exclamation mark and the equal sign. Okay, so that is going to be not equal to. And if you want to check that they're not equal to with the same data type and the same variable, just use the double after the exclamation mark. Okay, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to learn about the if statement in JavaScript. So the if statement is really cool. We're finally getting to a part now of this course where we can start to make decisions in JavaScript. So how the if statement works is, you have the keyword if, you then have parentheses, and inside of the parentheses, you can do a test. Okay, so, does a password have a certain number of characters? Does an age variable equal some sort of number? If that condition inside of the parentheses evaluates to true, we then enter the code block, i.e. the area between the curly braces, and just run whatever piece of code is in there. Okay, so that is an if statement in JavaScript. So let's actually write one out. So as I say, we use the keyword if, we have parentheses, and basically we run some code inside of the curly braces if some condition is true. Now to start off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard code this to be true and just show you how JavaScript would execute all of this. So you might just say console.log, I am some text, if I can spell correctly, before the if statement. Okay, awesome. We'll just do a console.log. I am inside the if statement. Okay. And then just after the if statement, we'll just do a console.log. I am running after the if statement. Okay, so let's just have a talk about this. Well, on line 12 here, because I've all this comments up here, on line 12, we're just logging out to the console. I am some text before the if statement, okay? So JavaScript is going to run or execute that. Then we come down to our if statement. Now, I told you that with an if statement, if the condition inside of the parentheses evaluates to true, we're going to run the code inside of the if statement. So I have hard coded that to be true, okay? So in other words, we're not doing some condition test that JavaScript has to evaluate. I've just told it, yeah, I want that to be true, so run the code. So we're going to log out to the console. I am inside the if statement, and then once the if statement completes, it's executed all of the code in between the curly braces. We're then just going to log out to the console. I am running after the if statement. So let's just save and refresh and have a look. And like I say, we get the text before the if statement, inside the if statement, and I am running after the if statement. Okay. So just to show you that, we could do numbers as well. So basically, we're running number 1. Number 2, I'm just showing you essentially the order of execution. So basically whatever code is before the if statement will run first, then the if statement will run if true, and then whatever is after the if statement. So if I save and refresh, whoops, we get 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that's awesome. Right, now, instead of just doing that, what I want to do is let's actually just do some sort of test, okay? So let's just say, you know, a bank balance. We'll say let, bank balance be equal to 200, okay? We get a call from our friend and he's like, hey, I want you to come out on a party with us, right? So go drinking. Well, we're kind of like, right, it might be an expensive night, so we kind of need at least $100. So if we have $100 or more, we're going to go out and party. So console.log, we'll say something like, yeah, I love this party, woohoo, or something like that, right? Okay, parties on the beach are my personal favorite. It's winter right now, it makes me sad. Okay, so we've created our variable, let bank balance equal to 200. Then we're doing our if statement here. When I say doing our if statement, what I really should say is we are evaluating some condition, okay, to be true or false. And if that condition is true, we're going to run all of the code inside the code block, i.e. between the curly braces. So, is the bank balance of 200 greater than or equal to 100? Well, yes, it is. So that's going to evaluate to true. And when that condition evaluates to true, we're going to run or execute the code inside of our curly braces, i.e. the code block. Okay? I.e. the code block. So let's have a look. If I save and refresh, we should log out to the console. Yay, I love this party. Okay. Yay, I love this party. Okay, awesome. And by the way, you don't just have to run one piece of code inside of the if statement. You could do multiple lines. So just to show that to you. Okay, you really like the party, hence why you're saying it out like 4 times. Okay, so yay, I love this party. Okay, awesome. Okay, so another thing you can do, by the way, is this is kind of cool with Visual Studio Code. If I hard code that to be false, okay, notice how like it's kind of grayed out all of the text. It's basically saying that this code is not going to run. Okay, so it has here unreachable code detected, i.e. that code will never run because the condition evaluates to false. Okay, awesome. Now, we'll do another basic example of Jessica's age or something like that, and then what we'll do is we'll just do check to see if a password is greater than a certain number of characters, right? So remember previously I was talking about letting people into our nightclub. Well, now we can do an if statement to check to see if that's true. So we can say let Jessica age, remember Jessica from earlier? Well, she's 32. Oh no, it's her birthday. She's 33 now. Happy birthday, Jessica. Okay, great. Now we're going to do our if statement. We're going to say if Jessica age is greater than or equal to 21. We want to let her into the nightclub, so we can just log out of the console. Welcome to the club. Have a great night. Okay. Personally, I'm not mad at nightclubs. I just prefer bars because I can hear people talking, but we're all different preferences. Okay. So Jessica is 33 years of age. So I've said let Jessica age, that variable, and I've assigned the value of 33. So we have assigned the variable called Jessica age a value of 33 of type number. Then here we're doing our if statement, okay? So here's the condition. Here's our check. So do you think this evaluates to true? Well, yes, it does, right? Think about it. Jessica age is 33, okay? So is 33 greater than or equal to 21? Yes, it is. That evaluates to true, and because that evaluates to true, we then enter the if statement, i.e. run the code inside of the curly braces. So we're just logging out of the console, console.log, welcome to the club, have a great night. So if I save and refresh, we get welcome to the club, have a great night. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is the if statement in JavaScript. In the next tutorial, I want to show you basically a way where you can run a piece of code if the if condition evaluates to true, but run another piece of code, i.e. another code block, if this condition here evaluates to false. So I'll show you that in the next tutorial. Okay, welcome back. In this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the else statement. So far we've seen the if statement. If some condition inside of these parentheses is true, we run some code. But what happens if the condition we're testing for or evaluating for actually evaluates to false? We don't know how to do anything. We just skip the if statement. So that brings us to the else statement. So how this works is we have the if keyword and our parentheses to test if some condition is true and our curly braces. So in between those two curly braces is the code block that runs if some condition evaluates to true. Else, if the condition we've tested for is not true, we actually enter the else code block and run the code here instead. Okay, so let's do an example of this. We could test for the length of a password. We could test a grade, some sort of Boolean value. So do a couple of quick examples. Okay, let's say hypothetically we want to test a user's password. So let's say let password equal to, and right now we'll just put it to an empty string. So a string with no value, right? And we want to test to see if the password length is above, let's say, 9 characters. So we can test for that. We can say if, okay, and what we want to do is we want to say password, use the decimal, right, dot. We're going to access the length property of password. We'll talk more about properties and methods later on in the course. But we're going to say if the password dot length is greater than 9 characters, we just want to say to the user, you know, console.log, you have a good password. We'll say good password, if I can spell. Alternatively, we want to say else, and we'll just console.log, you know, please enter a longer password. Please enter a longer password. Okay, awesome. So let's save, go to the browser and see what we get. So we get please enter a longer password, right? Because if we were to log to the console the password length, right, let's just show you this. Console.log password length is, okay, and then let's access the password variable and access the length property, right? We just come over here. We see the password length is 0 because it is an empty string, right? If I say something like, I like lemons, okay, well now the password is going to be longer than the required length, so we get good password. So let me just explain how that works. So I like lemons has 9 characters. So then we come down here to the if statement and it says, okay, is the password length greater than 9? And it's saying, well, that would evaluate to true. So therefore we come in here inside of the code block and we just log out, you know, good password. If I was to change my password to be just lemons, okay, that looks like what? Is that 6? Yeah, 6 characters, I think. So password length is going to be less than 6. So 6 is less than 9. It's not greater than 9, okay? So is 6 greater than 9? No, it's not. So that will evaluate to false. Therefore, we don't enter this code block here. We come down to else and enter this code block here. And then we just log out to the console. Please enter a longer password, okay? Awesome. Please enter a longer password. Okay, we'll get a couple more examples in the next tutorial with the else statement. We'll do a few more tests. We'll look at Boolean variables and some stuff like that. So I'll see you in the next one. Hey team, welcome back. Just want to do another couple of examples with the else statement, and then we'll move on to other concepts in JavaScript. So if you feel confident with the else statement, feel free to skip this video. Otherwise, let's continue learning together. Okay, so we saw in the last tutorial how we can create an else statement with the if block and the else block, and we did this example here where we basically just had a password and we checked for the password length. But let's just do an example of a grade, okay? Let's say hypothetically we want to check to see if someone got a score of 60 or above, right? So check for a score of 60 or above, right? Could you create an else statement with the if block and the else block where we just say if the user gets a score of, let's say, 60 or higher, we'll say great score, and if they get below that, we'll say good job anyway, or something like that, right? So how I would do that is we have the if keyword, open up parentheses for our check, right? Whatever we're checking here. If it evaluates to true, we'll enter the if code block, otherwise we'll enter the else code block. So we want to say if, well I can't say the word grade because we haven't defined it yet, so we'll say let grade be equal to 65. So someone got 65 in our test. So we're going to check to see if grade is greater than or equal to 60, okay? If that's the case, we'll just console.log out, you know, great job. Otherwise, we'll just say good job because we're kind of mean, right? We'll say console.log, good job. Anyway, maybe give them a little smiley face. Why not? Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? Well, we've created a variable called grade and we've assigned it the value of 65. So then JavaScript is going to do our check for us. It's going to say, okay, is grade with a value of 65 greater than or equal to 60? Well, that's going to evaluate to true, isn't it? That's going to evaluate to true. Therefore, we're going to enter the code block between the curly braces and we're going to run whatever code is in there. So, we could just log out great job 2 or 3 times if we wanted, okay? So let's save and refresh and see what we get. And we get great job 3 times because we're very happy our student did well. Okay, awesome. So you can also do another check as well. You can also check Boolean values. So whenever you're creating games in JavaScript, you want to see you want to test for the value of a Boolean. Maybe you'll keep letting the user have guesses if they haven't guessed the right number, for example, right? But we're going to do a check called is sober. We're going to say let is sober be equal to true. We're deciding if we're going to let people into our nightclub. Remember, Jessica, it's her birthday, so we're going to have a lot of people come into our nightclub. So let's just do another example. So we want to say if is sober is strictly equal to true, then what we want to do is we want to let people into our nightclub. We'll say, welcome to the club. Else, we might just say, not tonight, pal, or not tonight, friend. Not tonight, dude. If I can spell, not tonight. Okay. So here what we're doing is we're actually testing a Boolean value. So the variable is sober up here. Notice the camel case, by the way. The first word begins with a lowercase I, and the second word begins with an uppercase S, right? So what we've done is we've created a variable. We've created a variable called is sober and assigned it the value of Boolean true, okay? So this variable is a Boolean value, right? So you see here, it's telling you it's of type Boolean, right? So here what we're doing is we're testing a Boolean value to see if it has, or a Boolean variable to see if it has a value of true or false, okay? And the reason I use 3 equal signs here is, remember, if you were to use 1 equal sign, you're not doing a test, you're just assigning a value, okay? And then 2 equal signs, we saw loose equality, but it's better we get into the habit of using 3 equal signs when we want to test for strict equality. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, is true the Boolean value strictly equal to true? It is, okay? It is. So we're going to just log out welcome to the club, just to prove that to you. If I save and refresh, we get welcome to the club. And if I was to change that to be false, because the person has actually had a bit too many drinks, now is sober has been assigned a value of Boolean false. And remember, we want people to be sober. We want is sober, the variable, to be true. So this person comes up to the door. We're testing, are they sober? Well, they're not, right? False, the Boolean false is not equal to the Boolean true. So this condition will evaluate to false. We will not enter the code block, i.e. the space between that curly brace and this curly brace. Instead, we're going to come down here to the else block and we're just going to log out of the console, not tonight, dude. So just to prove that to you, if I save and refresh, we get not tonight, dude. Okay, awesome. So guys, that was a few examples of the else statement in JavaScript. So I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back. Okay, so far we've seen the if statement in JavaScript and we've seen the else statement. But the limitation with the else statement is it's very much binary, right? We're checking if this condition is true, run a piece of code, or if it's false, run another piece of code. But what if you want to check, for more than 2 conditions? You want to check what day of the week it is, what month of the year it is, and that kind of thing, right? Well, there is another thing we can do in JavaScript, that is the else if statement. And how that syntax works is we essentially have the if block, and then we have an else if block, okay? And then finally we have an else block, okay? So hypothetically, let's assume we're creating a game where the user has to roll a higher dice number than the computer, right? Well, what we've learned so far, we wouldn't be able to do that because, there's three potential outcomes here. The human gets a higher score, the computer gets a higher score, or it's actually a draw. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to introduce you to the else if statement, and we're just going to write some code, basically checking to see who won, right? So we need to create some variables first, like the human score and the computer score. So we'll say let computer score be equal to, we'll just hard code this to be 4, okay? And then we can say let human score, and let's say we hypothetically roll a 4 as well, right? Well, this is going to be a draw, so how would we test for that? Well, let's check to see if the computer score is higher than the human score first. So we know what we need to do. We have our if statement, we have our curly braces, okay, we're going to test for some condition. Then we have our else if, testing for some condition here. And then finally we have our else block, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to test to see if the computer score was greater than the human score. If that's the case, then we know the computer wins, right? So computer wins, okay? If, however, the computer score was less than the human score, okay, then the human has won, okay? So then the human wins. Otherwise, well, if the computer didn't win and the human didn't win, then it must have been a draw. Or in other words, if the computer score was not higher than the human score, but the computer score was also not lower than the human score, then we know it must have been a draw. So then we just log out to the console, it was a draw, okay? So this is the syntax of how we write an else if statement. So let's just basically do a console.log. So console.log, computer wins. Then we can just do human wins, and then it was a draw, okay? So we're actually getting to the point now where, if you think about it, you could potentially code up your own game to check to see, you could actually create a dice roll game. We'll do that later on in the course, where basically we'll get user input. That's more of a guessing game. We'll get the human to press a button, it rolls a dice score. We'll get the computer to do it, and we'll check who got the higher score. We will do a dice roll game later on in the course, okay? But for now, let's see. We have computer wins, then we have human wins, and then we have it must have been a draw. It was a draw. It was a draw. So this is pretty good. We're getting to the point now where we're starting to see multiple powers that we're learning together. So for example, we have here, we've learned now at this point how we can create variables and assign a value to those variables. We know how to do the if statement, the else if now, and the else, logging out things to the console, doing a comparison operator. So we're starting to slowly make progress in this course, build to your knowledge of JavaScript, right? So let me just review the code before we run out of the console. So what's going to happen? Well, computer score is 4, human score is 4. So we're going to enter this code block. Is the computer score greater than the human score? When we do this check using the comparison operator, that will evaluate to false, so we will not enter this code block. Then we come down here to this else if fella. Is the computer score less than the human score? Well, it's not, they're the same. So that will evaluate to false, and therefore we will not enter this code block. Then we come down to this bit here, and it's saying, okay, well, that didn't evaluate to true, that didn't evaluate to true, so I'm entering the else code block, and we console log out, it was a draw. Just to prove that to you, we get it was a draw. Okay, awesome. And then we could do, a situation where the computer wins. So the computer got a 6 in the dice roll, the human got a 4. What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is this condition here will be checked. Is the computer score greater than the human score? Is 6 greater than 4? Yes, it is. That will evaluate to true. So we log out to the console, computer wins, and we do not enter these code blocks down here. Okay, so let me just show that to you. And we get computer wins, awesome. And then finally, let's have a situation where the human wins, like the way we prevailed at the end of Terminator 2 against the machines. So now what's going to happen is the computer got a 3, we got a 4. What's going to happen? Computer score is not greater than the human score. 3 is not greater than 4, so that will evaluate to false. Then we're going to do our comparison operator here. Is the computer score less than the human score? In other words, is 3 the number? Less than 4 the number? Well, that is true, right? So that will evaluate to true. Therefore, we enter this code block and we log out to the console, human wins. Let me just refresh. we get human wins. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is the else if statement in JavaScript. It's very useful when you want to check, for more than two conditions, okay? So for example, days of the week, months of the year, that kind of thing. Why don't we do another example in the next tutorial, just get a bit more practice, and then we'll continue on learning new concepts in JavaScript. So I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so we're just going to get a bit more practice with the else if statement. Let's just do one where we're testing for the day of the week. Don't worry, we're not going to do like Monday all the way to Sunday. We'll do like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we'll have an else block where, it's basically the weekend, right? I assume you don't work on Fridays, right? Okay, so how do we do this? Well, let's create a variable. We'll say let day of week, and we'll assign it the value of Thursday, and let's begin our if, else if, and else blocks. So we want to say if day of week is strictly equal to Monday, we're going to run a piece of code. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have our else if day of week is strictly equal to Tuesday, we'll run a piece of code. This is just good practice. This is why I'm making you suffer. Else if day of week is equal to Wednesday. Can I type it out correctly? Wednesday, awesome. Then we're just going to have an else if for Thursday. And what you'll notice is the great thing about the else if statement is you can have multiple else if blocks. So we're going to have one if statement, if that condition is true, then our multiple else ifs, and then finally an else block at the end, okay? Now, obviously, if you were to test for, let's say, the months of the year, or where there's a bit more, you probably want to use a switch statement as well. And don't worry, we will cover that later on in this course. You have my word. Okay. So for each one, then we'll just log something out of the console. So we'll say console.log, semicolon to end statement. We'll just paste these in here. I'm just going to use the tab just to indent, just to make it a bit easier to see what's going on. Hope that's easy to read. Okay, so if the day of the week is equal to Monday, we're just going to say, oh my God, a full week of work ahead. And then go like, no, like Eric Cartman in South Park, no. Console.log, if it's Tuesday, say, I'd like to get coffee on Tuesdays. Maybe you do. Personally, I have coffee every day. Wednesday, you might say, I meet my friends for a midweek beer. Thursday, you might say like, oh my God, OMG, it's the weekend tomorrow. It's the weekend tomorrow. Else, you might say, well, it is the weekend. It's the effing weekend. We can't say that. We gotta be professional. It's the weekend. Woohoo! All right, no cursing in this tutorial. Okay, so what's going to happen? Well, we've created a variable called day of week. We've assigned it the value of Thursday. And now what's going to happen is we're going to enter the entire else if statement just to test multiple conditions and find out which day of the week it is. So we're going to come here inside of this part of the if statement and test for is the day of the week equal to Monday. That will evaluate to false, okay? Then we're going to do our test, and remember, if that evaluates to false, the condition, the code inside of the code block does not run, so that's not going to log out of the console. Then we're testing if the day of the week is equal to Tuesday. The day of the week, the variable is Thursday, that's what we're testing for, so that is not going to run. Then we're testing for if the day of the week is Wednesday. It's not. Then we're testing for the day of the week is Thursday, so that's what's going to log out of the console. Oh my God, it's the weekend tomorrow. Else then we just log out, it's the weekend, woohoo. So if I just save and refresh, what do we get? We get, oh my God, it's the weekend tomorrow. You could change that as well to be, what if we change it, let's say to Tuesday, what's going to happen? Let's have a look. So Tuesday, well then what should happen is we just log out, I like to get coffee on Tuesdays. Okay, so again, we enter the else if statement, that evaluates to false. This evaluates to true, this else if here, so that's what we log out to the console. We get, I like to get coffee on Tuesdays, okay? So if condition evaluates to true, we enter that part of the code block. I like to get coffee on Tuesdays. Awesome. And then just for practice, what happens if we are testing for the day of the week, but it's an empty string? Well, what's going to happen? All the conditions will evaluate to false until we get to the else. So by default, it's the weekend. Congratulations. Okay, guys, that's awesome. Um, as I say, we've now covered the if statement, the else statement, and the else if statement. So just for recap, the if statement is if you want to check if something is true, if some condition, and then we have our code block there, okay? But you're only testing if something evaluates to true. So if you want a bit more power, you want to do a binary test, like has someone paid for a Netflix account? Are they sober? Do we let them into the nightclub? Are they a certain age? We give them a discount on insurance. Then instead of using the if, what you want to do is you want to use the else statement, where you have essentially the if and you have the else. And then if you want to test for multiple conditions, you can do that by having the else if and then the else, okay? So for example, who has won in a game, the computer or the human, what day of the week is it, what month of the year is it, etc. But you don't want to make these things very long, so a switch statement is better in that scenario. Okay, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next one.